Hey gang, how's it going? Coach Tim here today. I hope you're doing great. And today I want to talk about nutrient deficiencies. So it's kind of odd to imagine that in a world where food is plentiful that we have certain shortfall nutrients, but it's true. In fact, the United States Department of Agriculture calls them shortfall nutrients. But when we look at people's food intake, there's quite a few essential nutrient deficiencies. So I want to go through a few of the most important ones, talk about how much is a good idea to get, and then also talk about where you can get them and why it's important that you are getting them. So number one on the list, probably not a surprise to anybody, is vitamin D, which is often referred to as the sunshine vitamin. But what's interesting is vitamin D is actually a pro-hormone in the body. It converts to a compound that's actually a hormone, and there's receptors in basically every tissue in the body for this active form of vitamin D. It's talking about your thyroid, your pancreas, your muscles, your brain, your gut, all over the place, which highlights the significance of vitamin D and why you can imagine that being a deficiency, which deficient or insufficient amount of vitamin D, which is prevalent around the world, can have consequences throughout the body. So just basically anything can be tied that you can imagine from a human health issue can be tied to an insufficient amount of vitamin D. How much you need is up for a little bit of debate. You have the Institute of Medicine, which sets the dietary reference intake at 600 IU per day. You have the Endocrine Society, which says between 1,500 and 2,000 IU per day. And you have the Vitamin D Council, which says about 5,000 IU per day. The best thing you can possibly do is get your vitamin D levels checked and actually see where you're at before you decide to start supplementing or seeing how much you need to take in. The best source of vitamin D is going to be the sunshine with your bare skin exposed. The UVB rays will be converted to the active form of vitamin D in your body. But that depends on a number of factors, including the time of day, the time of year, which is relative to where you live, your skin type. So darker skin is going to convert less of the UVB to vitamin D. So there's a number of factors to consider there, and how much skin you have exposed. So if you're wearing a shirt, you're going to have less vitamin D conversion than if you have your shirt off. And from a food source standpoint, very few foods are naturally occurring sources of vitamin D. You have oily fish, such as salmon and sardines, egg yolks, and mushrooms are really the primary sources. Dairy is fortified with vitamin D3, so that's an option as well. Second on my list, magnesium. Believe it or not, about 50% of the adult population is deficient in magnesium. And along those, believe it or not, facts, what you might not know is that magnesium is involved in about 300 different enzymatic and biological processes. It's often thought about simply as being helpful for bones, for healthy bones, which it is important, but also metabolic rate, blood sugar management, energy production, many things. In fact, a deficiency in magnesium is going to be tied to things like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, neurodegenerative diseases, and more. So important to make sure you get enough magnesium. For men, that typically means about 400 to 420 milligrams per day is the dietary reference intake. For women, 320 to 360 milligrams per day. Your best sources of magnesium are going to be foods like dark leafy greens, legumes, nuts, seeds, and whole grains. Pretty much foods that have high fiber content have high magnesium content. Speaking of fiber, that's my third shortfall nutrient. Believe it or not, only about 5% of the American population consumes the adequate intake of fiber per day. Most people are getting only about half, about 15 to 17 grams per day. And the adequate intake is set at 25 grams for women and 38 grams for men. I think if you were between 30 and 40 grams, most people would probably be in a good spot. Dietary fiber is extremely important for heart health, digestive system health, weight management, and glycemic or blood sugar regulation. Also can help prevent certain types of cancer. Where can you get fiber? Well, basically the same foods that we talked about with magnesium. So your dark leafy greens, your whole grains, your legumes, your nuts, and your seeds. The fourth shortfall nutrient that I want to highlight is water. Surprising thing, most people know how good water is for you. Most people are walking around in a slight state of dehydration, but even just a slight state of dehydration can impact mental and cognitive performance, physical performance. So your ability to focus, your feelings of energy, your mood, how well you perform physically in terms of exercise. And then also chronic dehydration is linked to basically most diseases. So how much water is actually very highly dependent on body size, how active you are, the climate that you're in, how much you sweat, and even the types of food that you eat. So foods like fruit and vegetables have high water content, so the more of those you eat, the less water you would need to drink. The Institute of Medicine recommends that men consume about 88 ounces of water per day, liquid water, and women about 61 ounces. So obviously the best source of water is water. It's pretty straightforward. So also a few other shortfall nutrients to mention that you can learn more about by clicking in the article or looking in the article below. Vitamins A, C, and E, potassium, calcium, choline, and omega-3 fatty acids are also very important nutrients that most people aren't getting enough of. So take a look at the article to review everything that we talked about. And if you have any questions or any feedback, feel free to share it. We'd love to hear from you. And I hope you found this helpful. Have a great day.